All right, welcome to episode number 7 of Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries for Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016. Thank you, Lord. Finally got better microphones and sound for this episode. Yeah, it took a while, but this is when we really started sounding halfway decent. So, yeah, how's it going, Mike? How are you doing? We're already in August. What the fuck, this year?
Yeah. I'm doing okay. Just haven't really done that much. I'm actually really just waiting for school to start again so I can finally just get this over with. I have one math class left, and then I'll finally get my AA transfer degree. I would like to get a job, and I filled out a bunch of applications, but, I had one interview recently, but I didn't think I was that confident, so I don't think I'm going to get it. First off, I haven't done interviews in forever, so it kind of makes sense. I was just very awkward and just uncomfortable.
And let's face it, you went in there going, I don't want this job. I do a YouTube channel about movies. This job is so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Just give me money so I can have a job.
Yeah, I would love to get paid. I would love to get more money for YouTube and stuff like that.
We all.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
But I know some stuff, the Ghostbusters reboot stuff like that. That's been a pretty decent amount of money I've made for that so far. But could be more if I didn't sign up for a partner. Got advice for you folks: if you have a small YouTube channel, don't sign up for a partner. Just stay with Google if you can, because the partner will just take a huge cut of whatever little profit you do make.
Has there been any advantage to that? Like, has there been any kind of like promotion or anything like that?
Not really. And but yeah, it seems like this podcast has been doing well, and I think it's gonna grow. Hopefully, we'll get this audio. We'll get these audio issues worked out and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're trying a new audio thing.
Yeah.
Try a new audio thing this time around. If everything goes according to plan, this should be the best sounding one we've done so far. So I am trying, folks. I am trying to make things as best I can for you people out there, because I care about you. You're all like my little snowflakes. You're all different.
So yeah, just been watching movies and Unsolved Mysteries and enjoying the bigger flat screen TV that I got basically for free, because it's one we had in our guest bedroom that nobody was using, and my mom's old tube TV finally went out in her bedroom, and so I decided, okay, I'll do a trade. I'll take the one from the guest bedroom, which is larger than my previous 32-inch flat screen, and you take my 32-inch and put it in your room, and it's worked out pretty well.
You heard it here, folks. Mike is so wealthy that he has huge flat screen TVs laying around his house that aren't being used. The wealth of this man. Jeez.
Well, I'm not wealthy. Like I'm lucky if I got $200 to my name right now, but my parents are pretty good. So
you're rich in spirit.
Yes.
All right, so the whole reason you people are probably tuning in probably has
not to hear us BS about our lives and what we've done over the past,
It probably has something to do with a little show called Unsolved Mysteries.
Yes.
The first segment we will be tackling today is one off the Strange Legends set from the Ultimate Collection. Or no, I'm sorry. Wrong again. Psychics.
Oh, it was on Psychics. Yeah, it was on Psychics.
Yes,
yeah.
Psychics. And
I should have known better because I watched that recently. Duh!
Yeah, and it's called Rainboy.
Yeah. I'm surprised this one wasn't on Stranger Legends or Ghosts or something, but it is kind of a hard one to... It's not really a psychic thing. It's more of a possession, like demonic thing. So...
Yeah.
I don't remember him being able to predict the future or anything, but I guess maybe there's psychic phenomena going on. But yeah, Rainboy it's a pretty terrifying segment. It's one that I really do think there's a lot of truth here because of how many witnesses there are and how many of them are everyday normal police officers
It
have
reminds
no
me a lot
reason
of
whatsoever to BS people.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Resurrection Mary story, where it just the witnesses itself give the story credence for the simple fact that these are just normal, ordinary people who have no interest in gaining fame or fortune. Unlike the Ghost Boy segment, where we found out the mom was actually writing a book and all that, and she stood to gain from.
Or like the other psychic segments with the guys who were like predicting the future or predicting, or talking to the dead. Like that guy with the mustache or whatever.
James Van Praagh.
Who wrote a book, and then the guy was reading the book one night, and then he had a dream about James Van Praagh or somebody talking to him about whatever. Yeah.
James Van Praagh is interesting, though, because even though he does stand to gain monetarily from his quote-unquote gift, if you want to believe that.
I think it was a different guy who wrote the book, though, not James Van Praagh.
Oh.
It was this other guy. But James Van Praagh is interesting, too.
Well, yeah, because he, if you want to believe what all people say about him, this guy really does have some kind of a psychic ability with the kind of stuff that he knows. And I mean, there's going to be skeptics for every single one of these cases that we talk about. And actually, surprisingly, though, the only skeptic in the Rainboy case was the police chief who went to visit the house. But that's later on.
I think honestly, he just refused. Was one of those people who just saw something that was just so unbelievable that he just refused to believe in it.
Oh yeah,
of his
totally.
Own sanity. Because that's really what I think that's what he was doing.
He was old school.
Yeah.
So, on February 24th, 1983, in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, James Kishpaw died of cirrhosis of the liver at the age of 63. His grandson, Don Decker, was granted a furlough from prison to attend his funeral. Don was in prison for 4 to a 12-month sentence for receiving stolen property. This was the capstone of a troubled adolescence. He revealed that his grandpa, who he was supposed to be mourning, had been abusing him physically since he was 7 years old.
That's really too bad.
Yeah. So after
they didn't really say for sure. Like, was it just like physical abuse, or was it sexual abuse as well? Like, they didn't really go that in depth on that. It was just kind of, he was abused.
Either way, this guy did not like his grandfather, and
exactly. I don't know who would, if your grandfather's abusing you.
My grandfather emotionally abused me as a kid, and I fucking hate him to this day. I mean, he's just an evil bastard. So I understand, a lot of people have these fuzzy, thoughts of their grandparents, and they should.
I don't, I have more fuzzy thoughts of my grandmothers. I've never really had a grandfather that was like, my Grandpa Bill wasn't really an asshole. He just, I didn't really appreciate him, kind of treating my mom the way that he did, and just forgetting her birthday because he was playing cards with his wife one night, that kind of thing. And then just time got away from, him, and they didn't even bother to call her. It was just kind of lame shit like that. But, he's passed away, so, and it's not like I really harbor any ill will towards him. My other grandfather, I barely even knew. So, and then I guess I could say my dad's dad, but he's kind of a dumbass. So he's not really an asshole, but it's just one of those things. I never really had a grandfather, grandpa that was like, I really never really had that.
Yeah, me neither. I had friends who had good grandparents, and I'd be jealous because I'm like, why can't I have?
It's just grandmothers for me. It's like I was partly raised by one of my grandmothers, and I lived with her and my mom for most of my life, and she means a lot to me, and I'm really glad that she was a part of my life and things like that. So, it's too bad that people anyone abuses their kids, whether it's a father or a grandparent, stuff like that. It's not really your grandson or granddaughter is really your kid, but you get what.
Yeah, right. So after the funeral, Don was just unnerved because apparently his parents were just going on about how great of a man this guy was, and he knew secretly that he was a piece of shit. So he ended up spending the night with some friends that he met earlier. And later on at their house, Don was just sitting by himself in a chair in the living room, and some of the other roommates there were just kind of reading the paper and stuff. And then, according to Unsolved Mysteries, quote, the air vibrated with a deep chill, and then simultaneously water started to leak from the walls. It was at that point that Don fell into an eerie trance-like state. So in the segment, they show that in this room, water just pretty much starts perspiring out of the walls and leaking and in streams of water down.
They did a great job with the practical effects here in this segment by making it just look like water's just, pouring, from the ceiling and coming out of the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
This is definitely a crazy segment that definitely stands out because not only for this kind of thing, the water and stuff like that, it's the other sort of stuff where they saw like a water droplet. What was it? Like it fell and then like it like traveled.
Well, they were mentioning about how the water wasn't just coming down from the ceiling. Yeah. They're saying it was coming from the wall over and from the ceiling up. So it was going in multiple directions, which, I mean, if you're talking like really outside of the realm of possibility, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean...
Yeah, it's not a leak. It's not your everyday leak. If the leak would just come from one place. It wouldn't come from the floor. It wouldn't come from the ceiling. And it wouldn't come from, what's seemingly midair.
So the
but nobody would think it was supernatural or anything. And people are just like, where the hell? Where's all this water coming from?
Yeah, because when you think supernatural, water isn't the first thing that you go to.
Think of blood, like the Amityville Horror,
or like a mist or a apparition or something, but not like just straight up water.
Exactly.
So they notified the landlord, Ron Van Wy. Not Van Who, not Van What, but Van Wy. The landlord came over and... What?
What me? Why worry?
Oh, God. Ron came over and he saw that, he was saying, well, I don't know how it could be leaking in here. There's no pipes in the front end of the house. All the piping was in the back of the house. There was no way that water should be coming from this part of the house. There's just no physical way that could be happening. So at that point they were befuddled and they decided to telephone the police, because it's like if this kind of stuff's going on and you're just like, which I gotta say seems like
it's kind of strange to call the police.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird go-to, let's call the cops, but I mean, that kind of foreshadows.
What do the cops do? The cops would be like, there's nobody here for me to arrest. I can't really do anything. This is weird.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of tells me that they really did think that, there was more to it than just water.
Yeah. Did they call a plumber first? I mean, that's the kind of thing you would think maybe, or a contractor, or, someone like that.
Yeah, you would think.
With the cops. But,
so,
hey, people call 911 for a lot of, for even more ridiculous reasons than this. I mean, this is pretty out there, but there's other people who call 911 because of stupid shit, like my husband won't let me watch my soap opera, or call 911 because of ants.
Just wasting taxpayers' dollars.
Exactly.
So, Officer John Bojam and his partner Richard
sorry. Bojam.
Then these aren't Southern cops either. These are Pennsylvanian cops. It's spelled like almost like a Cajun last name. It's like Baugan or something like that. But
it's like a Bojangles. Bojam and Bojangles.
Yeah. It's kind of a cartoony last name, but Him and his partner Richard Walbert showed up, and I guess Officer John, I guess I'm just gonna call him that so you don't get distracted by a last name because it's kind of a funny name. Officer John went to the house first, and he was like, "What the fuck?" So then when his partner showed up, he's like, walking to just go in the house, and he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Just go in there. You'll know when you go in there." He's like, "I'm not walking in this house until you tell me what I'm walking into." And finally, he persuaded him to go in with him. And when his partner Richard Walbert walked in, he was instantly pelted with water after just walking in 2 steps. And then they walked to the other part of the house where Dawn was not sitting, and the rest of the house was dry. It was only the living room that was wet. And
yeah, that's definitely something that stands out, because that's more of those things where it's like, it's another example of one of those things where it's like, yeah, something is not normal here. There's no way that this could be something that could just happen normally.
Yeah, so the officers, they were freaked out, and they left to report the incident to their police chief. At that point, Decker and his friends walked out to go get something to eat because they hadn't eaten in a while. So after they left the house, the Van Wise stayed behind, and they noticed the rain stopped. And just all the water and the leaking stopped as soon as they left. So they started to suspect that one of them was responsible for this thing that was happening. 23 hours since the rain had come, Pam Scarfolo, who owned this pizza restaurant where they walked to, was convinced that it was the devil, because apparently she was a friend of them, and they had kind of been telling her about it anyway. When they go to this restaurant, Dawn, yet again, was in this very trance-like state, and she felt like he was possessed. She was kind of one of the first people to voice that opinion. And then around that point, it started to rain in the restaurant. When they were in the restaurant, drops of water started falling all over the tables. And Pam, the owner of the restaurant who was sitting with them, she's like, "Do you have a crucifix?" And they're like, "No." So she happened to have one in her register, which kind of showed that she already had a bias towards,
Yeah, she's definitely a religious individual.
Right. So she put the crucifix in Don's hand, or around his neck, actually, and it burned him, and it turned black. So at that point, they were like, okay, there's something more going on to this. And I do got to say, the actress who played the lady in the pizzeria, she was really good.
Yeah, she was. She definitely was.
Every now and then on the Unsolved Mysteries reenactments, one of the actors will just stand out kind of above the others as just being really good. And she stood out to me. There's actually a few good actors in this segment.
I think the guy who played Don did a great job, too.
The guy who played Don played a pretty good job. I thought the police chief played a pretty decent job. But to me, though, like, speaking of Don, this guy doesn't seem so bright. When they're interviewing the real Don Decker for this segment, like, he seemed like a dunce.
Yeah.
He was just like, the
guy that they casted, like, he seemed a bit too good looking.
Yeah.
To have been that guy.
Yeah, he was very chiseled. He had a very chiseled face, and Don looked like a good old boy from Tennessee or something. Who maybe was a few fries short of a Happy Meal. The landlord, when they get back to the house, the landlord's wife confronted Dawn in the kitchen, and she's like, "This is all your fault. You're making this happen." And then right as she's like bitching him out, the pots and pans in the kitchen started to rattle. And then he levitated off the ground. And in the segment, it's great because, they're in the kitchen, right? So, right when she's, like, bitching him out, like, everything turns black in the kitchen. Like, the lights go off, and there's this green, like, very, like, bright green light that, like, comes from the ceiling, and he, just gets levitated up in the air, and then he gets thrown, like, by this invisible force. He gets thrown onto the ground. And then they cut back to Don, the real Don Decker, and he's like, I'm a big guy. I've always been very assertive. And he's like, man, when I got thrown like that, it made me feel like a newborn. And in the interview, he said, it scares me just talking about it right now. Like in the interview, he said that, which that stood out to me because usually when these people are talking about the stuff that happened to them, they don't say stuff like that. They never say it's scary. They never really break that fourth wall that this is just a TV show and say like, yeah, it scares me even talking about right now, you know. So
oh yeah,
thought that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Another example of how much more effective practical effects are than CGI. Like nowadays, if they did like a show like this, they probably might do it CGI or whatever. Like here, they probably just had a string or something, pulled the guy back, but then they covered it up, in post production. But
and it's truly creepy seeing him just he's standing there and he just levitates. He just like raises up off the ground, and it's like a real human being being raised off the ground, not some CGI sprite, that just materializes.
They didn't do shaky cam either. Or a bunch of annoying flash cuts.
Oh, if the revamp had gotten their hands on this segment, they would have butchered the hell out of it. God.
They would have had like the really not scary music in the background too.
It would have been like rock and roll. It would have been like Rob Zombie. It would have been like there would have been like 1,000 like blooming effects and like these like negative effects, and there would have been like graining, like artificial graininess, and fire would have been like shooting out everywhere. They added in after, and
they would have freeze frame, do this like, and the later seasons of this show they did that too. That I noticed they did this kind of annoying thing where somebody would be talking and then it'd freeze frame and zoom in. I don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, it's noticeable in some of the Bizarre Murders segments.
Oh wow, they were above that for a good while.
Yeah, but they kind of did that in the later seasons. I noticed in some of the segments, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah. Oh.
But hey, it's kind of the style, I guess, of the 2000s. This is extreme.
Yeah, that's true. They were getting into all that shit. They wanted to, I guess, change their image a little bit. So a few hours after the kitchen incident, the police chief was called in. And, as the police chief walked in, he was pelted with water, too. As the other officers were being interviewed, they said, we felt that the police chief, he got the impression that he was being put on the spot. He was a little embarrassed, like maybe there was something he could answer, One of the eyewitnesses, he was one of the only eyewitnesses who denied anything out of the ordinary that night that, happened. Like everyone.
He just said, he just flat out denied it. This is from Officer Bojang. Said he flat out denied it, didn't happen. He tried to convince me that nothing happened. And he wasn't going to do that. I saw it, and that's all there is to it. And I like that. I like the fact that this officer on the show was willing to be like, no, I saw what I saw, and I believe in it, and no, I don't think it was something that could have been explained away.
Yeah, and these aren't former police officers either. These guys, like, still currently hold their position as police officers. Well, they did at the time for the show, So like, it's not like
the 90s.
Yeah, so it's not like they were former police officer or anything like it sometimes is. For these cases, they'll get a former, like, retired FBI guy to speak, on behalf of an incident. But no, these guys were still on the force at the time. So he ordered the officers to leave the house, not file a report, and on top of all that, to not even speak of it at all. The officer thought the chief just wanted out because he couldn't provide an explanation, and he tried to convince the officers that nothing happened, and as you said, he wasn't going to do that because the guy saw it with his own eyes.
And then they actually decided to disobey the orders of the police chief, and they went out on their own to continue the investigation. And one of the officers is Bill Davies, and he goes up and he goes to the house, and this is a quote from Bill Davies. He says, "We're standing there, and I gave Mr. Decker this gold cross to hold. Next thing he says, it's burning my hands, and there's no explanation for it. When you picked it up, when you grabbed it, it's not hot, but it's hot, and I held on to it."
Which that was another great quote. Like if you go back and watch the segment, this is an old man. This is like an old like New Englander, just a classic. Like he's like, it's not hot, but it's hot. So, I thought that was a great quote.
It is, because you're like, wait, so it's still hot. I mean, it's not hot. It's hot.
So yeah, they went and did their own, investigation because I guess they wanted to find out what was going on. And
what happens next is probably one of the most disturbing and really scary, moments in this segment, where they're Bill Davies is, I think Don was once again levitated off the floor, and Lieutenant John Rundle said he witnessed it. And I remember this scene too. Is they put a paper bag over his head.
Yeah, they
right?
put a paper bag over his head and put the crucifix in his hand. He drops the crucifix because it's so hot, and then at that point, he lifts up off the ground and again is thrown against the wall. And as the cop said, he was hit. The force was like as if a bus hit him.
Yeah.
And he couldn't explain it. The officers on there, they were just like, I don't know what it was. I just, I've in my 40 years of police work, I've never seen anything like this. He's like, there's always an explanation for something, but this, I have no explanation. I don't know.
There is no explanation. And then they also saw the 3 claw marks on the side of his neck, which were the things that really
It's always claw marks. Have you noticed that? About any kind of ghost or spirit, it's always claws. That's creepy to me. It's always claws.
It makes you think of, like some kind of definitely demonic sort of activity.
Right, because, there's supposed to be various levels of demons that work for Satan's army, and they have kind of like the front, the front, cavalry or whatever, the more basic ones, who do kind of like the more, laborious tasks, and all. And these one, there's all kinds of apparent different soldiers in the army of the demonic army. And I don't know. I just think of like Dungeons and Dragons or something, like the demon card or something. And he's got like these claws and wings and stuff. And
there's these claw marks on the side of his neck, which drew blood. And Lieutenant John Rundle says, I have no answer for it whatsoever. I just draw a blank even today.
So then they call in Miss Cleo, apparently, and for those of you who
passed away recently.
For those of you who don't remember, she was one of those telephone psychics, like, call me now for your free reading. And it's not really Miss Cleo, but she might as well be. It's this black lady who's apparently Jamaican or something, and she attempted an exorcism. Every other preacher and minister had turned them down. As she started to pray, Donnie went into convulsions. He started to shake. He went into the fetal position. But as the more they prayed, the more kind of relaxed he got and the more calmer he became. And pretty soon after they had finished praying, all the water was gone. The results were apparently temporary, though, because after his furlough for the funeral, he returned back to jail. And within a few days, the rain materialized again. But this time it was different because Don started to think he could control it and he could make it rain. So in his cell, he was there with his cellmate, and he said, it was then I thought I could do stuff, which I thought was kind of foreboding. I can really do stuff.
Creepy.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that you hear in like a horror film.
Yeah,
with some guy who's got demonic powers or something, and he realizes, or it's like Magneto or something. Like, right. I can do things with my mind.
So he realized he's
not a very good mutant power, though. Again,
I don't know. I'd take it. I'd take any mutant power, honestly. I'd take what I can get. I think it's pretty cool.
I'm just making it rain. Like, you make it like a tsunami, okay, maybe, but kind of like Hydro Man. It's kind of a lame Spider-Man villain.
I don't know. I mean, it's he had other problems. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of a demonic thing. So
yeah, I'm just messing around.
No joking here, Mike. This is all very serious. Okay, we're talking about a guy who makes it rain. This is a very serious discussion.
With money.
I know, that's all I kept thinking about. I was like, I make it rain, I make it rain. Like, I couldn't I'm sorry, I hate like current culture, I really do, but like that's all, like it's been so drilled into my head by like these hip-hop songs. That's like all I could think about is him at a strip club, just like, I make it rain in other ways too, baby. I'm Donnie D, motherfucker, I make it rain. So anyway, he's in his cell and he's like, I want to make it rain in this cell. So his cellmate starts, yelling and complaining and fussing because it's raining, or it's wet at least. And he's like, hey, get me out of here,
I didn't go to prison for this.
Right. I mean, you can have me in this shitty cell, but I expect to have some good, accommodations while I'm here, damn it. I expect to be dry. So the warden came in and moved the cellmate, and he started talking to Don Decker, and Don's like, I can make it rain, and I can control the rain. And the warden's like, oh yeah, you can make it rain? We'll make it rain in Sergeant Keenhold's office, David Keenhold. So then they cut to Dave Keenhold, and he's sitting in his office, and he was writing reports, and it was approximately 8 in the evening. At the time, he didn't feel anything, and then he hears a knock at the door, and it's the warden that just came from Don Decker's cell. And he said, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but, and then right at that point, he paused, and he looks down at Sergeant Keenhold's shirt, and he sees that it's saturated with water.
Yeah.
And he goes on he starts freaking out. He's like, this guy's saying he can make it rain. Look at your shirt. And he's like, what the hell? This is like a new shirt, This shouldn't be, wet. And at that point, he tells him what's going on. And they're both very startled and frightened at that point.
Well, understandably so. I mean, you've never seen anything like that happen before.
Yeah, it's very
And disturbing. You can't control it. And then you're wondering what else can he do.
Right. What else can... Yeah, exactly. So then the scariest part in this segment, in my opinion, comes up. They call in Reverend Blackburn, and he received a call from the sergeant in the jail, and they brought him into this room with the Reverend. And this is a scene like right out of like The Exorcist or something.
Yeah,
like,
this right out of The
Exorcist. Great.
Yeah.
It's a great scene. He brings him into this room, so it's just him and the minister in this room together. And as the minister describes, he looked like a very meek, mild young man. And then he goes, what's wrong, son? What seems to be the problem? And Don goes, I can make it rain. And the priest said, son, don't you think you'd make it a lot easier on yourself if you stopped all this nonsense right now? You're making all this up, aren't you? And then he says all of a sudden his demeanor changed, in the room filled with a stench. And he's talking about oftentimes in hospital rooms when there's a patient dying of cancer, you can smell the smell of death in this hospital room. And he said it smelled like this multiplied by 10. He said it was an evil, foreboding smell. And at that point, Don says, I have powers you don't. I can make it rain. And
that was really creepy, the way that he delivered that line, the actor. Yeah.
And then he raised his hand and he rubbed his index and thumb together. And then according to the priest, it started to rain. It was
like the devil's rain.
Yeah, he said it was a cold, evil mist. It was like the devil's rain. And so he said, I'm going to pray for you. And Don goes, I don't want you to pray for me. He goes, I don't care what you want. Prayer is my prerogative.
I love that line, too.
Yeah. So
it's like I said, as badass as a priest can get.
Right? Prayer is my prerogative. So he opens...
My prerogative.
Exactly. Bobby Brown in the house. So he opened the Bible and he started to pray for him, and he notices that the pages never got wet, which honestly, that gave me goosebumps too.
Yeah, that did too.
The pages of the Bible never got wet, but everything else did. That was pretty awesome. So as he prayed for him, again, the rain subsided. They cried together, they hugged, and pretty much after that, they follow up with Don again, the real Don Decker, being interviewed, and he said, it's pretty much over and it hasn't happened again. He believes that it was his grandfather abusing him from beyond the grave, because he abused him in his living years, and this was just another way basically for him to fuck with him even when he was dead.
Or maybe his grandfather, the reason why he was abusing him is maybe his grandfather was possessed. And then when his grandfather died, and Don was in this sort of state of despair, and because of being in jail and things like that, and his parents not pretty much not believing what he's saying about what his grandfather did to him. That enabled an opening for whatever spirit or whatever demonic entity that was there to enter him.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
I don't know.
A lot of these demonic possession things tend to kind of deal with people who were in very low points in their lives.
That's true.
And
That's true.
the reason why the infestation is able to occur is because the person just doesn't really have the will to fight.
Well, Don Decker, when this segment was filmed, the guy looked like he was maybe in his 30s, mid-30s or so. So the dude's still alive. Oh,
he is, totally. And I also love that every time they interviewed him, they had what clearly was like rain on the windows.
Which I went back and I listened to the audio commentary, and that was a purposeful decision that was made.
Of course. It wasn't one of those like, oh my God, he's making it rain again.
Yeah, and then at the end, when they're interviewing him at the very end, there's no more rain in the background that you can see. Yeah, but I mean, that was a cool little touch.
There's a nice aesthetic choice there. And then they interviewed Peter Jordan, who is this paranormal researcher guy, along with Chip Decker.
No relation.
And this guy, Chip Decker, is saying things like, I think what makes this case very unique is that all of the witnesses are so credible. We're dealing with very good, well-seasoned police officers that were obviously rather frightened and shaken by this, but also had the powers of observation. And then Peter Jordan chimes in, and he's like, the Donald Decker case is by far the singularly most fascinating and important case I've ever personally been involved in. That does not mean I believe that it necessarily is proof positive to me of demonic infestation. But it is the case, in my own personal experience up to this point, that comes the closest to that hypothesis.
And then Robert Stack caps the episode off with this great quote. He goes, as John Milton wrote in Paradise Lost, the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven.
Yeah, Robert Stack is just... I miss him so much. He was so
poetry.
Great at delivering these type of last lines for these segments. So I guess you can safely say you can definitely blame it on the rain.
Oh my God. That's horrible. Blame it on the rain that was... It's actually raining right now at my house. As we're talking about
this. It's like, blame it on the rain. Yeah.
God. So, I mean, for me personally, I believe this really happened. I have no reason to doubt the witnesses. Everybody seems very credible. It was not crazy enough for me to be like, that. Well, I mean, it was kind of crazy.
I'd say all of the witnesses, the priest, I would like to 100% believe but priests, they kind of have this sort of thing where they're priests. So, they kind of, in order to kind of make their religion kind of prop it up a little bit, they might exaggerate some things, possibly. So I don't necessarily know about that particular part, but the stuff by the cops and by the regular, people, whatever, at the restaurant or some stuff like that, I'm more willing to believe that. It's because I've read cases that exorcism sort of cases, and there were cases where there were priests that kind of just exaggerated things in the past and tried to make it sound like there was not somebody that was. This was definitely not just mental illness. Right. That's for sure, because it has the whole rain thing associated with it. But the thing is with the priest, with what he was saying, like I wasn't really there, so I can't really say that the pages of the Bible didn't get wet. So, but regardless, there's still I think there's a lot of truth to this story, in one way or another.
So tying into the world of the psychic world, now we go into psychic experiences and psychokinesis with a segment entitled "The Electric Lady," which was picked by
even reference Rainboy.
Yes, they referenced Rain Boy before they got into the Electric Lady, and they referenced someone else, for which segment I have not seen yet. But
Yeah, I don't know why that was not on there because that segment looked really interesting, and then like they just, well, interesting segment that you should have seen before, but nope.
yeah, normally on the Ultimate Collection, if they reference another segment, that segment's on the Ultimate Collection as well. Like with the UFO Odyssey, they referenced like 10 different segments, and each one was on the box set. But this one referenced a segment that was not on.
But anyway, this one is called Electric Lady, and I chose this one because it ties in with the Rain Boy. It deals with these sort of unexplainable psychic phenomenon, and instead of or phenomena, not really phenomenon, but phenomena. And instead of rain, somebody making it rain, it's dealing with this woman who, when she was younger, I think she was able to predict some events psychically. And then she started having these psychic occurrences, like stuff exploding in her hands, which is really pretty scary too. Probably not as scary as demonic claw marks and rain, coming out of nowhere. But
again, it deals with the whole unknown factor. Well,
exactly.
What can she control? What like does
it manifested when she was stressed, so it reminded me a lot of Carrie, the movie and the novel by Stephen King.
So this starts off with Janine Price, who was the aforementioned Electric Lady of Long Beach, California. She had psychic episodes that started way back in her childhood. She felt like she could read minds and predict the future, and it began at the age of 10. She was consumed by the feeling that she had a sister that she never met, and her mom refused to answer the question. Now, watching these unsolved segments, there's a lot of these. I don't know if that was a thing back in the day that happened or what, but there's a lot of these segments where it's like there's a missing
the lost love.
Yeah, lost love. There's a missing kid or a missing sibling, and the parents just don't talk about it because I guess back in the day, if you couldn't afford more kids than what you already had, you just gave the other ones away. I guess this was before the Department of Children and Families was established.
I guess so. But yeah, I just love how the parent is like, no, what? No, you don't need to know about that, type of thing. Like, it's like by acting like that, you're clearly putting it across that you are hiding something.
Right.
I mean, you're not doing a very good job lying there. I'm sorry.
I feel like it's almost become a trope at this point in movies and TV shows for the kid or something to be like, I found this dusty old picture of someone who looks like me. That's nobody. You don't need to worry about that. Stay out of the basement,
Don't go through our things.
Yeah.
Brown did.
So
that's my sister.
Yeah, so she felt like that she was related. She felt like she had a sister or whatever. So she was digging through her parents' personal effects one day, and she found this photo album. And as she's going through the pages, she touches this one picture of this girl, and she knew it was her sister. And so she brings a picture down to her mom, and she's like, Mom, who's this? And her mom's like, that's nobody. Where did you get that? I told you to stay out of our room. And she's like, no, I know who this is. This is my sister. And her mother at that point was forced to admit that she did have a half-sister named Judy. And it was at that very point that Janine got the premonition, and she even told her mom, she said, I'm going to meet her one day, and then soon after I meet her, she's going to die.
That's that's really tragic. And what's really, really tragic about this is that this actually came true.
Right.
Her premonition. And she even was very detailed about it too. So that's what really convinced me that she's not your average, just person who's trying to fake psychic, abilities. Because she was very on the nose about it. She said it would have something to do with blood in her head.
Like something's going to burst.
Yeah.
And
that was when she was a little girl, when she had this premonition.
Yeah, so she finally met her sister when she was an adult. And within a year of meeting her sister, Judy was admitted to the hospital complaining of headaches. And then the doctor said it was nothing more serious than migraines. And then Janine sensed her childhood premonitions were soon going to be fulfilled. And then they show a segment where she's in the, in the waiting, or in the kind of the hallway of the outside of the room of her half sister, and she's arguing with the doctor, and then the doctor says that basically that you're not a doctor or whatever, and that I know best, which I feel like has become kind of a stereotype.
That was probably exaggerated. It probably didn't happen like that in real life, but I still like that added in there because it just adds the sort of the drama,
right?
And it increases the drama here, and it's really definitely very tragic and heartbreaking, and you definitely feel for her, and you're like, no, you stupid doctor, she's right.
Right, exactly. And
she's psychic.
She was like, very insistent to the doctor.
What? Psychic. Whatever.
She was really insistent to the doctor that they needed to perform more tests and this, that, and the other, and they just wouldn't do it. And then she ended up dying of a brain aneurysm. But it's funny, because when she insisted that they do these extra tests, they wouldn't do it. Yet if you rewind back to the case of Marie Hilly, the son insisted that the doctor perform more tests on his sister, who he thought was being poisoned by the mom, and they did do additional tests.
Because he didn't say he has a feeling. He didn't say, like, I have, that she was kind of saying it like,
I'm a psychic.
Yeah. So then the doctor's all, this fucking crazy bitch, whatever.
Which is kind of like, if you're a psychic, wouldn't you have enough like common sense to know I can't go around telling people I'm a psychic because they're probably not going to believe me, and perhaps I should just mask this as, hey, I think you should check her head because she says that it might be a brain aneurysm. She whispered it to me. She said, hey, don't tell anybody, but I feel like this might be a brain aneurysm. Just saying, so you might want to check that. Maybe I shouldn't approach this whole thing as though I'm a psychic and I have a tinfoil hat on my head and you really need to do this because aliens. Doctors tend to scoff at that, but she really was escorted out. It happened in the segment, but she also said in real life they escorted her out of the hospital. But her sister unfortunately did pass away, and then she was kind of just lost at that point mentally because she's like, I'm not seen as normal, but I'm not necessarily seen as abnormal either. She's like, I felt like a ship without a captain,
Yeah, and then I'm like, what is normal? Really? I mean, that's how I look at it. I mean, what is normal?
Everyone has their own definition.
Exactly. So I don't think there's one specific definition of what normal is. So, she could be a normal person except for one extraordinary ability that she possesses. So she's depressed, and then in 1994, September 1994, she met with a doctor named Michael Persinger, who was an expert in psychic phenomenon, and he tested thousands of psychic patients, including her. And he has this belief that electric pulses from the brain cause predictions and other phenomena. And several incidents related to electric pulses have occurred since Janine was a teenager.
Right. He was talking about how these psychic experiences come from severe bursts of electricity in the brain, similar to epileptic seizures. The brain is like a TV, and during these seizure conditions, a brain can get enhanced experiences. And
I love the old,
the old
illustration.
They show this old illustration, this CGI kind of image of a TV with it looks like one of those like illustrations you'd see on a public access channel that's explaining how something works, and it's this digital I don't know, it's hard to explain. It
definitely is not aged very well. But,
no, it hasn't. Speaking of stuff that hasn't aged well, Unsolved Mysteries, probably the corniest scene ever in Unsolved Mysteries. If you ever get a chance to watch this, on the DVD under Psychics, it's called Storm in Hell, and it's about this guy in...
Yes, I saw that one recently.
You know what scene I'm talking about? Where he's in the bubble, and, and he's a little kid, and he's praying to God as a little kid or whatever. Dude, that was just obnoxiously bad.
Yeah, the whole I love Jesus, I love the Bible.
Yeah, it's just the most obnoxious little kid voice you can imagine. And you know what's funny is, like, I noticed that they showed the Storm in Hell segment on the revamps with Dennis Farina, and they totally edited out that part of it completely. And I'm like, okay, maybe that was a good call.
I think that segment was more terrifying on an episode of Sightings.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being for real, like the idea of it was scary, though. Portraying hell was probably difficult to do for a show, you know, with although Unsolved Mysteries didn't have a small budget, but I mean, you know, what this guy was describing. Anyway, getting off topic. So. Basically, the theory is that, you know, as a psychic, you have these bursts of electricity in your brain that are much more than the normal person would have. And if it happens, say, in the part of your brain that controls time and a sense of time, they're theorizing here that it's possible that you get an enhanced sense of time where you're not limited to being stuck in the current time that we're in. Like, it's almost like you can go outside the time and space continuum and see into kind of the future of what's going to happen. If you're keeping up with that show Stranger Things on Netflix, when they explain how time is on a linear plane, but you can fold it in half and poke a pencil through it, and then you've gone through one area of time to another. It's kind of how they're talking about this psychic experience. And then they just kind of go back into the electric lady, Janine, but then they add the element of psychokinesis, which is psychic energy. And
this is one of the one of the things that definitely stood out about this segment. So there's these incidents that she had that are related to these electrical pulses in her brain, which I know people might scoff at this, but the brain, I think, has a lot of things that we still don't understand and we still do not know. So the brain is a very complex organ, and so it's one of those things that there's a lot of unexplained stuff in the brain itself. And so these incidents would occur, and she would just be holding a coffee pot, and then it would suddenly explode in her hands. Just imagine that, folks. You're having a bad day already. I mean, that's not good. That's bad in itself. You come home, you maybe just want to get a cup of coffee, and your glass coffee pot just explodes right in your hands out of nowhere. There's no reason why that would happen. Unless there was something wrong with you.
If it were me, I would first think maybe the coffee pot got super
hot.
Yeah, superheated, and the glass cracked. But when it kept happening, then I would be like, okay, seriously, what the fuck is going on?
Because she eventually got to the point where she basically got rid of everything that had glass in her house, because it would constantly just shatter in her hands or when she was near it. Dr. William Roll, who's
William Roll again,
who is a regular on this show.
This motherfucker is a fixture on this show. You will see William Roll in anything paranormal whatsoever. He's
also a fixture on Sightings as well, I believe.
Oh, so. That's funny. Yeah, he was the goddamn go-to. He's still alive, by the way, which is crazy because in the show he looks like
old. But yeah,
he looks like he's like 60 or 70 in the show. But yeah, I Wikipedia'd him.
He believes that the stress from her life builds up with electricity and causes these strange things to happen. And a prime example of this is when she was dealing with a divorce and raising her two kids while living with her mother. And she was upset, and pictures flew off the wall during a phone conversation that was which was aggravating her. And then electric shocks and sparks, and all this kind of crazy went from her keys to the car when she tried to open it, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, she was her son. She was walking in the car with her son, and she was just really charged up that day. No pun intended. She wasn't angry, but she was just real hyped up. And she went to put the key in the trunk, and a lightning bolt shot from the key to the car.
Yeah,
and the keys flew out of her hand.
I mean, I know I get shocked every now and then when, you open a car door or you deal with that because there's electric shock type stuff that everybody, encounters every now and then. But this is like to 11. It's all up to 11. It's like fucking lightning bolts shooting out of your keys and shit. Some people might think it's cool because it'd be like, oh man, I have superpowers.
Right, and I don't think she was particularly afraid of it. She more or less had the attitude of it was she
an inconvenience.
Right, she was unsure of it, and she was saying at the end of the segment how she wished she could harness this power because it's been said that if you know, the people who have gotten the ability to harness this power have been able to cure diseases and stuff. So that's what she was saying. That she ultimately wanted to do.
That was nice of her. And then there's there's a really crazy one where she asked her son to heat her baby daughter's bottle in the microwave, and he didn't put it in for long enough, or put it on the wrong setting, so she reset it, and then the microwave exploded.
Yep.
And then she called a repairman, and he couldn't find any cause for this occurrence to happen. And then this one also was a real standout, where she was ironing a shirt. And she was actually planning on ironing it, but she was distracted and became angry, and she started doing so, and it looked like she was just ironing these clothes normally, and then her mother realized that it wasn't plugged in, and she had to like grab the plug in and be like, "Are you ironing right now? It's not plugged in."
Yeah, and it was still ironing the clothes. Like, the clothes were still being ironed.
That's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's definitely trippy. It's kind of scary.
Which, by the way, she did not call just a repairman to repair the microwave. It was a microwave repairman, is what she said. Which... What the? Microwave repairman? Good Lord. If that doesn't date this episode, I don't know what does. I'm in the microwave repair business. This business is booming. Fucking microwave repairman. Nowadays, we just throw out the damn microwave and buy a new one. That's the American way.
Exactly, yeah. And, of course, they call this energy psychokinesis. And nobody can really explain why this happens to certain people, like Janine.
Yeah, so it basically just ends with her saying that, you know, she eventually wants to harness this power and use it for good. And
at least she wants to use it for good. Imagine somebody who uses this for evil.
Well, I mean, you know, thankfully she was Janine and not Magneto, because if she was Magneto, then we'd probably have a problem.
Eric Lehnsherr, yeah.
So that was a very interesting segment. You know, again, not very difficult for me to believe that one, because I believe that, you know, the brain is a very unexplored, mysterious mechanism that can be harnessed to do things that no one would even think possible, you know, ever in the, you know. So, I mean, just even going to those, like, you know, those monks who can go into such a deep meditation that they can like submerge themselves in like a 0-degree water for like an hour or something like that, and they can literally slow their heartbeat down to where they're, you know, it's barely beating, and you know, these are very real things that you can do with your mind if you get it under control. You know, now to suggest that you can move things with your mind and this, that, and the other, that's not that much far-fetched, or that's not that far-fetched compared to you know, those other things that these monks
seems like these aren't controllable, though. And see, that's the thing with these cases. It seems like they're just it's sparked by stress, or you know, some sort. And it kind of makes sense, you know, that maybe that amplifies whatever energy that is inside these people who have these psychokinetic abilities. Some of them are bullshit, though, like the guy who can bend spoons or whatever. Like, that's been proven to be complete bullshit. But you know, she doesn't seem like a person who was like going to do this to, I'm psychic, I'm going to go on a tour and go to Vegas and you know, do all and pay people to see me do psychic things.
She didn't. Yeah, basically, she wasn't trying to monetize her ability.
No.
Well, that's cool. All right. Going to our final segment of this episode. I don't know how we haven't touched on one of these yet, but we're finally doing a Bigfoot segment here. This specific one on the Strange Legends box set is called Bigfoot number 2, but then when you actually put the DVD in, the segment says Oregon Bigfoot or Bigfoot in Oregon or something like that.
That's really what it's more like, because there's a Yeti one, which I think... Do they list that as Bigfoot number 2? Or... No, I don't even know if the Yeti one is even on the set.
No, it is. It is.
It is.
It's just
later.
called Yeti.
Just called Yeti. So yeah, it's weird. Bigfoot 2, and you're like, where's the first Bigfoot? I don't know where this sounds like a sequel.
I mean, they could have called it Bigfoot 2 Electric Boogaloo. Would you have preferred that?
No, not really. I think there was a monster truck called Bigfoot, and I think they might have had.
Oh yeah, there was.
Truck, and they called it Bigfoot 2, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Bigfoot was badass, man. You had Carolina Crusher and Gravedigger and Bigfoot. Anyway.
Sunday.
So
Bigfoot is in the woods.
Mount Hood, Oregon. Is it, Mike? Definitively, is it Oregon or Oregon? I say Oregon.
I say Oregon, and I grew up in Oregon, so I know people say Oregon, but I really don't like that pronunciation.
Man, you people,
how you actually pronounce it.
You Oregonians get really pissed off when people call it Oregon.
I don't really care, to be honest. It's like, I don't want to call it Oregon.
Mike, stop yelling at me.
People say it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, this case takes place right in your fucking backyard, man. Maybe you can...
Mount Hood, yeah. Over Mount Hood. Washington, yeah.
So have you been to Mount Hood, or...?
Yeah, I've been to Mount Hood.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I didn't even know that before we started recording this. I had no idea you actually went to this location.
Yeah, probably not exactly where the guy saw Bigfoot, but yeah, I've been to Mount Hood.
So if I watch the segment, if I look close enough in the background, can I see you as a kid hiking up the...
No, we didn't really hike up Mount Hood. I've been near Mount Hood, at the Timberline Lodge and places like that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we don't have any mountains in Florida. I don't know what a mountain is.
The Shining was kind of the outside of the hotel in The Shining was shot at Timberline Lodge.
Oh, cool.
I've been around there, and I think I might have done a little bit of a trail around there, but I haven't really hiked up the mountain. I'm really not. Yeah, I need to get in better shape if I'm going to try to do that kind of thing.
Gotta stop smoking those 3 packs a day, Mike.
And more like stop eating junk food and actually work out.
So that's where this took place, April 19th, 1994. A group of people are on a manhunt. A helicopter is equipped with infrared sensors. This manhunt...
It's a crazy opening.
Yeah, it really is. They make it seem like they're hunting for this guy or something. It's like, this manhunt is...
Like Tom Jones.
Yeah.
Fugitive.
It's a training exercise, though, and the person running away from everybody is a volunteer, and he's a stand-in for the legendary creature known as Bigfoot. Many believe Bigfoot to be the missing link, obviously, between ape and human. This training exercise was funded by the Bigfoot Research Project. This old, very kind of colorful, colorful character.
He was in the Yeti segment.
Yeah.
So
he was.
It seems like he's a regular with these sort of Bigfoot, cryptozoological, ape man segments on the show.
He was not in the skunk ape one though, so he's not that.
He was not in this other one that was on. I think it was the second or the third. It was the second season, which I don't believe that was on the DVD set.
Oh, I'll get to it, Mike. Don't you worry. So basically, Peter Byrne, who's this very kind of, dignified, kind of old school British, just
very confident though.
Yeah. He seems like when they're interviewing him, I feel like he should be wearing like a Hugh Hefner like robe and smoking a pipe. Like he's got this very,
He's he's confident at the point. It's kind of cocky. So he's like, so we don't want to capture it. We don't want to shoot it. The ultimate find, as far as we're concerned, would be to do something like what Jane Goodall did. In other words, to find one, see if we can communicate, and have it lead us to others. and then bring in the right people, totally responsible people. Bring in scientists and show them what we found and document the whole thing. Of course,
which makes sense. I mean, that's.
It's not like the Finding Bigfoot show on, what was it, the Travel Channel or Discovery?
Oh, those channels are, yeah, I thought I saw that, and they always tease you before they go to commercial by, there'll be some weird noise, and they'll be like, what the fuck was that? And then they go to commercial, it's like, yeah, I'm sure you're really gonna find one on this show before.
It was hosted by Gene Kane from Ripley's Believe It or Not, that used to air on TBS.
Yeah, fucking Superman over there.
And then I remember like the finale was like these guys found some hair and they did some tests on it, and it is not Bigfoot.
First of all, what people need to understand about all these silly little shows like UFO Hunters and also that kind of stuff, if they find anything, you're going to be reading about it on your Facebook feed, on Yahoo News. You're going to be reading about it on all the major news outlets before it's revealed on one of these stupid pre-filmed shows. They're not going to break. Yeah, they're not going to like make some kind of breaking news, like archaeological find or cryptozoological find. They're not going to break that on a fucking cable TV show. They're just
a reality show. No.
So, anyway, after they,
as I'm concerned, this is reality TV,
right?
The real reality TV,
right? So Todd Neese was a sergeant in the Army National Guard, and once a month he would return to the Oregon Coastal Range, where he had an unusual sighting while on maneuvers in 1993. Across the ravine, he saw 3 figures that were standing upright, about 9 feet in height, whatever. He was approached by another sergeant that walked up to him and said, "Sergeant Neese, did you see what I saw, at that second Rockport?" And then Sergeant Neese, not wanting to be made a fool of, said, "Well, what did you see?" And the other sergeant said, in no uncertain terms, it looked like 3 big feet. And then it goes back to Peter Byrne, who's saying if you see them during the day, it usually means there is a disturbance in their habitat. Now, that makes sense if they're, these sergeants are doing these kind of like training maneuvers or whatever. So after 1 month after Todd Neese's sighting, 100 miles away, driving down this country road, these women actually spotted one of these creatures as they're driving down this road. In the distance, the one of the women who was driving said she saw movement, and she said it stood up and it moved across the road, and they just couldn't make sense.
The way this scene was shot was really well done.
Yeah,
like, this was probably one of the freakiest Bigfoot moments in the show, because it's at night and it happens in like a blink of an eye. And like, just to put yourself in that situation, driving at night is already kind of perilous and kind of scary in itself. And then you see some fucking hairy, 8 foot tall, hairy motherfucker just calmly stroll across the road in front of you. And then you just see it's one of those things where you gotta like pause for a second, stop the car, and be like, what the fuck just happened? Did I really just see Harry from Harry and the Hendersons just walk out of the bushes?
That was a great movie.
and just walk across the street. I need to lay off the booze, or I need to stop smoking.
Yeah, so I mean, I live on a long, lonesome, desolate road with no street lights. Like, to get to my house, you have to drive down this long road, very similar to this, but it's paved, thankfully. It's not, it goes off eventually to a dirt road, but as far as the long... See,
I'm in like a suburb, like near a city, so if any of that kind of crazy shit happened, like the whole neighborhood would probably know about it.
Yeah, see, that could totally happen out where I live, and it would be, like... It would be, reasonable.
One person saw it, and then everyone's like, whatever.
Well, because like I've hit deer going down that road before. I mean, I hate to say, and it was a very traumatic experience. But like, I've been driving down that road, and
hitting Bigfoot. I don't think you're gonna.
Bigfoot would hit back, I believe. Or maybe it would be a Harry and the Hendersons thing where I can go up to it and I'm like, holy shit! And then John Lithgow tells me to watch my mouth. You know what's funny about that movie, Harry and the Hendersons? That was the first time, as a kid, that was the first time I ever heard the phrase "holy shit." I had never heard that phrase before I saw that movie.
And did you know there was a TV show based on that used to air on USA Network?
Doesn't surprise me.
Lasted for like multiple seasons, but nobody remembers it.
Yeah, I don't remember it. That'd be good for you to do a review on, because I doubt there's a video out there about that. Well, there probably is. There's a video about fucking everything now. So, probably the most compelling story from this case.
Elmer.
Yeah, Elmer. Where's his fucking name?
Fromback.
Yeah, there you go. Elmer Fromback. July 15th.
Not Elmer Fudd. Elmer Fromback.
July 15th, 1989. Elmer Fromback of Seattle, Washington. Oh, Seattle, Washington. All right, so exactly. Mike can tell us a little bit about this. Probably not. Seattle, Washington took his family on an outing by the Canadian border. He set off to stake claim in an area nearby. He brought along compass, surveyor's ribbons, all the kind of stuff that you would need to stake claim somewhere. As he traveled in the upper areas about 1,500 feet, he noticed that the trees were snapped off, and they were strategically placed as if to block the path off. So he went up the hillside to where he could walk on the trails easily again. Elmer had just began to take a few ore samples from the earth when he realized that he was not alone. So he's like tapping this ore with his little, pick there. Mm-hmm. And then he hears this pounding sound right after he got done hitting his, little piece of iron ore. He heard this tapping sound that was almost like mimicking what he was doing.
And then he said, this is what he says. He says, I saw a big black hairy mass. And at the time I kept thinking in my mind, I've got to find a way to scare it. And I fired a shot above its head. And it turned just slightly, and then proceeded to walk down the trail as though I wasn't even there. And as it walked away from me, it took perfect human-like strides down the trail, only like a giant man. This thing had crouched down at the end of the trail, and it picked up a rock the size of a basketball, and was using it to bang against the other rocks that again made a slight sideways turn, just enough to see me. Other rocks that again made a slight sideways turn, just enough to see me out of the corner of its eye. I was scared and I wanted to get out of there. And I kept running down the hillside, and the thing was in hot pursuit the whole way. And this is well shot too, and this is pretty terrifying. Think about this, folks. You're just around in the woods hiking, whatever. Beautiful day, things are normal, whatever. See this fucking giant, hairy, big motherfucker, Bigfoot, and then you're like, oh, holy shit! You try to scare it away because you think it's a bear at first, rightfully so. And then, it's not a bear. It's something even more dangerous and deadly than a bear. It's fucking Bigfoot. And so then you're running away, and then this thing is fucking chasing after you in hot pursuit. I mean, man, I would have shat my pants. I'm serious.
Well, I thought the whole scene, of him, hitting the ore from the earth or whatever, and then this.
Well, that's creepy too, because that's in the middle of nowhere, and then you're hearing someone mimicking you.
Yeah, because at first he thought it was the kids, his kids or whatever. He was like, "All right, guys, real funny," and then that black hairy mass tumbles down the mountain. Yeah. And he thought it was an avalanche, and this thing gets up, and this is a really good looking Bigfoot on the show. They did a good job on the
practical makeup effects.
Yeah, and man, this thing gets up and walks away, and it is huge. And so he fires his gun off to scare it, and it ignores him like, "Bitch, you ain't shit." So, but then when he turns the corner, to follow the Bigfoot, and he sees the shot of the Bigfoot all the way at the end of the trail, just sitting down, and then him at the beginning of the trail, and just you see Bigfoot sitting down off in the distance, hitting something with this big rock, and then all of a sudden it turns its head and sees him, and then he just starts running. That was so scary.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah. That would scare anyone. I said, it would scare anyone shitless. You're just like, I don't care. Yeah, crap my pants. Bigfoot is chasing after me. I think you do the same thing.
Yeah, fight or flight definitely kicks in at that point. You're trying to survive. You're trying to preserve your life at that point.
I love Peter Byrne, his explanation for it. He was like, it wasn't really chasing him. It was more doing what was it?
Demonstration charge.
It was a demonstration charge. I'm like,
trying to tell him to get out of his territory.
He was chasing him. Seriously.
Just that kind of coy, emotionless kind of English
Yeah.
way about him. Just like, you see, he was not trying to scare him. It's known as a demonstration charge. You know, it's like if this Peter guy encountered the Bigfoot, he's like, well, hello, sir. Would you mind coming with me so we can research you? I would appreciate that very much. Oh, yes, you seem to be annoyed. I'll come back later. Very good.
Would you like some of my beef jerky? It's Jackling's. I've heard you really like this particular brand of beef jerky. Oh no, I'm going to keep it for myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had enough
what?
to share. I do have some trail mix, however. So, after all this stuff happens, they, of course, bring in the differing opinion. Notable anthropologist Darius Swindler, he brought
Swindler.
up... Yeah, he is a swindler, all right. He brought up how he basically wants to see, you know, like what every Bigfoot skeptic is. He wants to see bone and dental evidence.
Well, think about it. If these Bigfoot were intelligent enough, they basically find a way to stay hidden from us. And they're probably afraid of us too. So, I mean, that's one thing to consider. But at the same time, I am kind of in the same boat. I mean, you can show me all the footprints you want, and the Patterson video, which I don't really know for sure. I mean, there's been people who've said, "Oh, it's legit," and there's other people who are like, "No." And I think so it's like up in the air with that. I mean, part of me like, oh, totally, I would love to believe in Bigfoot. The Yeti, I kind of think is a little bit more plausible because the Yeti it's like in a kind of an uninhabited area. Nobody really lives in that area where the Yeti would be, other than, you know, some monks. And but with Bigfoot, it's like it's very vast areas. A lot of people who travel around in the Pacific Northwest. You would think they'd be able to find it, but maybe the sightings are no longer happening because maybe the Bigfoot died or
that's
whatever.
kind of how I feel about it. I feel like in the 90s and 80s there was a lot of this kind of going on, and I feel like whatever it was did
like
finally.
The Mothman.
Yeah, I feel like whatever it was did finally die out. I feel like if it was real, it was definitely on the verge of extinction, and I feel like it finally just did go extinct. And one interesting final point that Peter Byrne brings up to the anthropologist who was saying he wanted basically bone and teeth evidence to believe it. You know, Peter Byrne saying you can talk to people who's lived out here 50 years and they've never seen anything dead. They've never seen any dead bodies. He's like, basically animals eat the carcasses of other animals. It's nature's way, and you know, it's just like an elephant dies in Africa. The body's every trace of the body is gone in 48 hours. You know, it's just, the animals take care of it. You know, and that's just
So that probably might have been what would have happened.
And that's a valid point too, because you know I kind of live out in the country myself, and I never see any dead things out here. I mean, every now and then you might find like.
Well, I've seen like birds and stuff that got ran over on the road.
Right, but that's different.
Like
just you never because I kind of have a foresty kind of thing back here in back of my house. I never see just any dead animal back there, you know. Like, and I go back there a lot. And
there was a particular sighting segment where they talked about Bigfoot that I thought was really good. That was sort of like that some guy saw Bigfoot or whatever that was around like his property. Well, imagine that. Now that would be really scary. A Bigfoot over in your backyard, huh? Backyard Bigfoot.
No, thank you.
So yeah, it's one of those things where we don't really have proof yet, but I don't know. It's one of those things you'd like to believe in, you know, if you're interested in cryptozoological, you know, sort of things and stuff like that. I look at it as definitely more of a legend. But, you know, there are some people who said that what they've seen, I mean, you know, the lady and so on, the guy's got chased by one. I mean, you know, there's some validity there. And I can't really say that, what they saw wasn't Bigfoot because I wasn't there.
Well, this is my thing. This is my kind of my final point about all this.
Or Sasquatch.
My thing is, there's shit in the ocean that we don't know about in the deep.
Oh, exactly. In the deep,
in the very depths of the ocean. There's things that we just can't get to. We can't be everywhere at once. There's things in the ocean
I
that
thought the giant squid wasn't real until they actually did find a giant squid, which was living, in the very deep, dark depths of the ocean that was pretty much unexplored for many years. So in these trenches and places like that, there's a lot of types of fish and species that are completely unknown. The same thing happens, in the rainforest. There's a lot of species and animals and insects and things like that that have yet to be discovered.
Right. And you look at like Yellowstone National Park, which is by far one of the biggest parks in the world, and there's just acres, thousands upon thousands of acres of land. If you actually Google the size of Yellowstone National Park, it's like the size of like a couple states. I mean, it's ginormous. It's huge. So to tell me that we have the ego to say that we know, even though it is land and it's not underwater or anything, to say we know we can be everywhere at once and just know in all these, huge, massive.
I mean, for example, there was this woman in the Psychics DVD who got lost in the wilderness, and there was a whole manhunt for her, including helicopters and like high tech, technology to use to search for people who were lost, and they could not find her. It wasn't until this random cowboy guy got some vision of where she might be, and he ended up finding her. So, and to relate that to this whole sort of Bigfoot thing, if we can't find a woman, we can't find somebody who is in the wilderness with all our high tech and technology and everything. Why is it expected that we would be able to find Bigfoot if it did exist?
Not only to just find them, but to definitively say, no, there's no way anything like that could exist out there, because I just know everything that can and can't exist, and that can't.
The same people thought the Colossant was extinct until people eventually found some surviving Colossants, I think, in the Amazon River a while ago. Now, I don't think they're alive anymore, but when they did find them, they thought they were extinct, rightfully so.
What the hell is a Colossant?
It's a type of extinct fish. That was considered extinct since, the prehistoric era. And sometime in the 80s or something, they found living Colossants. And so that kind of stuff happens where you're like, oh, there's no way that exists, and then bam, we find some extinct Colossants in the river somewhere.
At first I was thinking the Coruscant from Star Wars, and then I was thinking croissant, and I started getting hungry, and now
for sandwich, yeah.
Yeah, now I'm just disappointed.
But I love how they also said something like, we want to get it dead or alive, which just made me think of RoboCop. It was like, dead or alive.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
With me.
So my whole thing is keep an open mind about this, people. Don't just straight up flat out deny it, because the point is to say that there isn't something out there means that you definitively know, and you don't. You don't definitively know. That's why I don't.
That's why we call it the unexplained.
Right.
The unknown. And I know there's people out there who would be like, well, there's a scientific explanation for it, but we don't know it yet. So that's just the same thing as unknown and unexplained. You're just adding your science argument in there.
Science can be very flaky.
You still don't have any idea what the fuck, what the hell it is either. You're just saying, well, there's an explanation. We just don't know it yet.
Right.
Well, I feel the same way. I don't know it yet either, but I refuse to say that it's 100% scientific and something of nature. A Bigfoot could definitely be something of nature. It could have been like some kind of. You could have all kinds of wild theories, government experiments gone awry, Neanderthals, who survived and then evolved or something. And it seems like there wasn't like a lot of these Bigfoot. There wasn't a lot of these Sasquatches. So, I've heard stories of them finding baby Sasquatches, but I don't really know about that.
Yeah.
But it seems like there really wasn't that many. And even if there was like a family of them, it doesn't seem like it was like a lot. So, yeah, it's interesting. I can't say for sure Bigfoot exists, but I can't say for sure it doesn't.
Just keep an open mind, people, and,
Same thing like with ghosts and, other stuff like that, or the Loch Ness Monster.
keep an open mind until you have a reason not to, and that's all we here at the Uncovering Unsolved Mysteries podcast want you to do, is just keep an open mind. And if you find out that something is bullshit, let's say maybe halfway in the middle of a segment while you're doing it live, like I did with Ghost Boy, then let that happen, and it's all part of the journey.
Exactly.
So I think that's all we have for this week, folks. I'm Josh Cannon, here with my ever-ready friend Mike. Again, I don't know what the terms I use to describe you, I don't know what any of them mean. Hopefully some kids out in Washington who are playing Pokemon Go out in the mountains will find Bigfoot. Until then, we can just hope and wish.
That would be hilarious. The whole headline is, instead of Pokemon Go, somebody found a dead body while playing Pokemon Go. Somebody finds Bigfoot while playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, Pokemon went. So, anyway, to all you guys out there, we would love to hear from you, whatever, format you listen to this on. Just comment, man. I check all this stuff, and I see that we get all these listeners, but you guys are really silent out there, so I'd like to hear from you. Any way that you can let us, reach out and just say,
let us know what you thought, what your thoughts are on what the segments we're talking about, stuff like that. We'd appreciate it. Any more requests? I know we've gotten a decent amount of them. We should probably incorporate some of those into some upcoming episodes.
Yeah, we will. It seems like there's a never-ending mine of things to chisel away at here. So all your
there's just a treasure trove of stuff to talk about. It's not like we're gonna run out of things to talk about on this show.
No, it's not like when the Ultimate Collection runs out, then we're screwed. We still have access to some of the other segments, let's just say.
Yes.
Yes.
We do.
So you can add Mike's YouTube channel, and you should. It's youtube.com/OCP Communications. He does a lot of movie reviews, and I'm finding myself watching them more and more. I'm
starting to post the podcasts on there. I'm going to post. I'm kind of behind, but I'm going to try to eventually, hopefully, get all of these episodes on that channel, so people can watch them or listen to them on YouTube, if they would like to do it that way.
I was thinking, I think your movie reviews, you should do like a podcast / rant, maybe while you're doing the video simultaneously, or be recording it, just the audio, and do it. Because I think your movie reviews would make a really good podcast format too, because they're so long and you're not really...
Yeah.
I've
done some stuff like that. I've considered stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. If I was going to do anything like that, it might be kind of movie news related. I kind of do that kind of stuff with Talking Cinema.
Okay.
If you like movies, if you like horror films, all different types of genres, check my channel out. And I also did a solo segment of Uncovering Unsolved Mysteries on there on the Bobby and Christy Baskin case. So
yeah, that one's a YouTube exclusive. So if you run out of episodes to listen to on here, you can go to his channel and listen to a solo.
That one really pissed me off. So yeah.
Mike gets really pissed off in that one. I can vouch for that. He yells and it's not pleasant. It's very frightening. So
there's actually another one like that on season 4.
Where you yell?
No, there's a segment of the show like that where this mother kidnaps the kid. But this one has much more palatable ending.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/dancingwithghosts. and the number 2. I do all kinds of videos. It's all entertainment related. My most recent one I did is Mario the most overrated game franchise, or overrated character of all time? I give my opinions on that. I do book reviews, game reviews.
I think he's got some pretty big coming up. Right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm always working on my next video. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but yeah, I got a bunch of things in the can coming down.
I'd love to see you try more foods from other countries. That would be fun.
I'm limited to whatever Publix has in their ethnic food section. I could do a German one, a Jamaican one. There's some other ethnic foods they do in there. It's another thing I do. I try British food because I went to the Publix aisle and I just bought all the ethnic. Do you have a Publix over there where you live? I don't think you do.
I don't know if we do, but there's other places I can get stuff like that, or I could buy one of those monthly packages where you subscribe to like food that gets sent to you from all these different countries.
Oh, wow, that's neat. Well, see, you just learned that exists if you didn't already know.